What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into another episode here at Patriots Global. As always, I'm your host, Colby Cochran. Look, I know you guys are going to be on my butt. Sure, you're in the chat. Colby, where you been? Okay, why are you releasing this so damn late? And we're going to hop into this. We're not going to waste any time, but I just want to say, unfortunately, YouTube was acting up. We couldn't get the stream up correctly when I wanted to go live. As soon as they dropped the roster, then had to do some stuff for Bleacher Report. I do also host two shows every Tuesday for Roundtable Sports, the AFC West Roundtable at 6:30 p.m. Eastern and the NFC South Roundtable at 8 p.m. Eastern. So we just finished those two shows and we're hopping right on over here to you guys. So appreciate you guys for being in the chat. Please make sure you leave a big like on the video, but we have a lot to break down, okay? Because the New England Patriots made their 53-man roster breakdown today. They made all their roster moves. There's guys that are put on IR. There's guys who made this roster that nobody thought. The Patriots kept 8 total wide receivers. There was a discussion. There was a heated debate. Do the Patriots keep 6 wide receivers? Do they keep 7? Ain't nobody and their mother, ain't nobody or their mother thought that they were going to keep more than 7 wide receivers. I think that's something that collectively we can all agree on, is that if you told me before today that they were keeping 8 wide receivers, I would have laughed in your face and I would have told you that's just not happening. But it did. We are also going to be reacting to what the final roster was compared to what my projections were. I think that's a fun little thing that we should do. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and let's pull it up. Let's break down the New England Patriots official roster here. So starting with the quarterbacks, the New England Patriots have Drake May and they have Joshua Dobbs. That is no surprise to me. I don't really think that should be a surprise to anybody. And of course, that is something that I also had. For my final roster prediction, I did think that Drake May was going to make it. Josh Dobbs, with, of course, Ben Woolridge being cut, something that I don't think really surprised anyone. I think the real debate now comes up to, well, Josh Dobbs didn't perform very well throughout training camp practices. He really didn't look good. In the days that he struggled, we would say, okay, let's see what he does tomorrow. For the most part, he would bounce back, but he would bounce back for a day. And the problem is that it's great to bounce back, but if you bounce back for one day and then you go back to your old ways, then the bounce back doesn't really matter. It kind of defeats the whole purpose. I've been really disappointed with what I saw from Josh Dobbs. You know, he came here. I thought he was going to be a good backup quarterback, a journeyman guy who has won games in this league. And let me tell you, Ben Woolridge might have looked better this offseason than Joshua Dobbs has. Do they go out there and do they try to get one of these quarterbacks that was released? Do they try to get a Tommy DeVito, baby? As an Italian, I'm all for it. The only thing is that I do think if this team goes out there and they add a third quarterback, that's what they're going to do. Like, it is going to be a quarterback that makes the 53-man roster as the third quarterback. I don't think that they're going to go out there and cut Josh Dobbs immediately. I think that it's something that would slowly have to progress. You keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster, you see which one's better, and you allow that third quarterback, whether it's Tommy DeVito or somebody else, to learn the playbook and truly understand it, build chemistry with the offense, and then you cut Josh Dobbs. Because as physically disappointing as he might be, Josh Dobbs is a veteran. He knows the expectations in the league. He knows how to read an NFL defense. He's had success throughout games at times as a NFL quarterback, and he knows this team. He knows the receivers. He knows the system. That's somebody that a new quarterback, Tommy DeVito or whoever else maybe you want it to be, they wouldn't have. And unfortunately for Drake May, he has had some injury scares. So with that being said, you are going to want a backup quarterback on the roster that if they need to start week 2, they need to start week 3 because Drake May goes down with an injury. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. Then you have somebody like Dobbs who could step in. Now, obviously, not reporting anything that are going to move on from Dobbs. If you ask me, I have to put my money on it. I think they're going to stick with him, whether we like it or not. But moving on here, because I don't really think there's much controversy at quarterback. As for the running backs, you have 3. You got Ramondre Stevenson, Travion Henderson, and Antonio Gibson. When it comes to what I ultimately had projected, I had that. I had Ramondre Stevenson, Gibson, Travion Henderson. The argument for running back 4, I do think was legit, but I think that was legit when Lan Larison was in the building, because I do think he is a little bit different than all the running backs that we see on this list, between the running backs that made the final roster, between the running backs that were ultimately cut, a guy that can be a return man on special teams, a guy that can be a gunner on special teams, elusive as soon as he gets the ball off the line of scrimmage, can be good in the receiving game, good in pass blocking. And unfortunately, after the first game against the Commanders, he was placed on season-ending injured reserve. So the Lan Larison experiment was done. After that, there really, at least in my opinion, was no running back on this roster that made sense to keep on the 53. Maybe JaMychal Hasty, but that's a guy they brought in late to the process. I think, they'll probably put him back on the practice squad. But other than the guys, the three guys that made this roster, the obvious ones, there was no argument for another guy to make the roster. Now, I don't think it's impossible, dependent on what happens with this running back core early on. I don't think it's impossible that the Patriots go out there and add another running back, whether it's through waiver wire priority, which, by the way, the Patriots will be fourth in waiver wire priority. Starting tomorrow, players that must go through waivers after being released, the Patriots will be fourth on that list. So as long as the first few teams do ultimately pass on that guy, the Patriots will have the option to sign that guy before the majority of teams in the league do. That is one benefit to being as bad as we were last year. But like I said, ultimately, I don't have too much to say about the running back position. I think those are the three guys that, even if there is a fourth guy that's added, those are going to be your primary guys. Moving on to wide receiver, okay? And this is where we have more of a debate. And this is something that I actually want to get a little bit more deep into. So strap in, guys, because here we go. The Patriots kept 8 wide receivers. And I touched upon this earlier. I won't go on my soapbox again. The New England Patriots kept 8 wide receivers, something that nobody saw coming. And to me, my argument with keeping 6 wide receivers was last year we kept 7. And when we kept 7 wide receivers last year, we didn't get to see what we had from the young guys because they had to have this deep rotation of guys. There was always at least one wide receiver that was a healthy scratch, and that guy wasn't happy. And so you never let players develop. We never knew what we had. You had players getting upset, wanting to be released, wanting to be traded. And I think that for what New England has, like under Mike Vrabel, I don't think those same things are going to happen because it's a different culture. But what I do believe is that we have young players that we need to see how are they going to fare in this system. You signed Matt Collins to a multi-year deal. How is he going to look in this system? You drafted Kyle Williams. You have Efton Chisholm as a UDFA. There are guys that you need to allow to develop here a little bit. Pop Douglas, a third-year wide receiver, I think even he needs to still develop a little bit. They need to make sure they give those guys, a fair amount of time rather than, okay, we're going to have this deep rotation and, guys are going to play 40%. You're going to play 40%. You're going to play 70. You're going to play 30. So that's my one caveat with keeping this many guys. But with injury problems, with uncertainties, you do understand why. So the receivers that they are keeping, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Efton Chisholm, and Javon Baker. Now, if we look at my list, for the most part, this is what I expected, right? I had Stephon Diggs sticking around, Douglas, Williams, Boutte, Hollins. I even had Kendrick Bourne sticking around. A lot of people had Kendrick Bourne getting cut. Personally, I didn't see it. I thought that they were going to place Kendrick Bourne on short-term IR. The Patriots, well, actually all teams, but just speaking about the Patriots here specifically, can place 2 players on short-term IR. What that means is that you put them on IR now. You had to do it the day of roster cutdowns, and they can still return at some point this season. Patriots have 2 players on IR, but only one of those players is on short-term IR. So they could have done that with KB, but they didn't elect to do so. So clearly they do believe that Kendrick Bourne is going to come back sooner rather than later. Now, as for John Giles and Jeremiah Webb being cut, I think those are both guys you want back on the practice squad if you're ultimately able to, but I didn't have them making the roster anyway. The real debate comes into Javon Baker. And I've already gotten comments about this. Oh, dude, this your take about Javon Baker is spoiled milk, and you should have known he was going to make the roster as a Patriots reporter, and I told you so. Let's get one thing straight. To all the Javon Baker truthers out there, which if you had Javon Baker making the roster, that's perfectly fine. It's okay if I have a different opinion than you do. It's all right. But I said that Javon Baker was not making this final roster as a wide receiver. He's not. I cannot stress this enough because there are some people that think Javon Baker is making this 53-man roster as a wide receiver, and I cannot stress to you guys enough that that is not the case. I firmly believe that Javon Baker is player 50 to 53 right now on this roster. I don't even guarantee that he is going to be on the roster the final week of the season. If they need to cut somebody, for depth, if they want to add another guy, I think Javon Baker has the potential to be somebody who does still ultimately get cut. And by the way, Boston media thought the same thing. The majority of people in Boston media didn't think that Javon Baker was going to make the final roster because he didn't deserve so. Now, not that I need Boston media to back up my own takes, because I don't. I stand 10 toes in every single take that I have. But it's just to further execute that point. Javon Baker is making this roster as a gunner. He's going to be your gunner on special teams. That is going to be his role. Javon Baker is not going to see the field on offense, okay? There were rumors today that Javon Baker, supposed reports that Javon Baker was cut, that he didn't make the roster. Rumors swirling around that he unfollowed the Patriots on Instagram. It wasn't until the Patriots dropped this list that we saw he made the final roster. Again, what that tells me is that he's not secured on this roster throughout the entire season. That he's here now, but he's player 50 to 53 on the 53-man roster. To all the people out there telling me that Javon Baker is on this roster as a wide receiver, please tell me, and guys, I'm completely opening to hearing this, but please can somebody tell me, what has Javon Baker done since being drafted by New England as a wide receiver that tells you he's going to pan out? Is it his inability to get separation over the last 2 preseasons now with 5 different quarterbacks in the preseason against 3s and 4s? Was it his inability to get on the field last year when the Patriots had a terrible wide receiver core and were dealing with injuries? I'm just not sure what it is. I mean, Javon Baker had a 25%, actually a 24% catch rate heading into that final preseason game. He struggled in that game too against the Giants just a couple of weeks ago, or just last week rather. He's now below a 24% catch percentage throughout his entirety of his Patriots career. Okay? Javon Baker struggled as a blocker this preseason. He still can't catch the ball. Javon Baker is a good special teamer, okay? Javon Baker deserves to be on this roster as a special teamer. But Javon Baker is not on this roster as a wide receiver. It's not a debate. It's just a fact. Moving on to the tight ends. And by the way, that's not hate. I don't have any personal hate for Javon Baker. In fact, Javon Baker had the highest grade out of all my draft grades from the 2024 draft class. Do I have it here, actually? Yeah, look, Javon Baker, back when the draft happened, I had Javon Baker with an A- grade. That was my highest grade from that draft class. So I was a big Javon Baker guy. All right, I'm just saying facts. It's not hate. But as for the tight ends making the roster, you have 3, Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, and Jack Westover. Now, a lot of people were very surprised that Jack Westover made the 53. I'm not really sure why. I had Jack Westover. Where is it? I think these are my tight ends. Yeah. So as you can see on my roster prediction, I had Austin Hooper making it. I had Hunter Henry making it. I had Jack Westover making it. And then G. Scott getting cut. Jack Westover, the writing was on the wall that he was going to make this final roster. I mean, he was repping with the Patriots' first team offense in practices. He was out there with the Patriots' first team offense throughout the preseason. He was repping in as tight end 3, but also the starting fullback. Ever since Brock Lampy went down with an injury early on in training camp, it was day 1 of pads that Brock Lampy went down. He got put on season-ending injured reserve. That's when Jack Westover took over, and he never lost that role. Do I think the Patriots can upgrade at fullback? Yes. Do I think the Patriots can upgrade at tight end 3? Yes. Interesting storyline to watch here. Former Patriot Jakob Johnson and former Raider when Josh McDaniels was there, he was released by the Texans today. So I am curious if the Patriots decide to go that route. But when Brock Lampy was put on injured reserve, I said, I wonder if there is a world in which the Patriots kill 2 birds with 1 stone. There's a lot of positions on this roster that need some extra depth. Do they say, in order to get the most amount of guys on this roster as possible, we're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We're going to keep a tight end 3 that can be our depth tight end 3, but can also be our starting fullback. That way he gets onto the field and we're not just wasting a roster spot. And I think that's what Jack Westover is there for. Again, he's not somebody that I'm expecting to be there throughout the entire season. I'm not expecting him to make it to week 18, but at least for now, he is your starting fullback and he is your depth tight end 3. Moving on here to the offensive tackle. So we got Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, Vidarian Lowe, and Marcus Bryant. I wasn't too far off on this one. Okay, I had Will Campbell, Morgan Moses, and Marcus Bryant, but I thought Vidarian Lowe would get traded. All right, there were reports coming out leading into roster cutdowns. It dropped a couple of days ago. It was a report. I forget who it was by, but it was that the Patriots are shopping Vidarian Lowe and Demontre Jacobs. I never thought that they would get any type of draft compensation in return for Demontre Jacobs, but I thought, look, the league is short of good offensive linemen, especially at tackle. So teams will give up even a 6th or 7th round pick for a guy that isn't a starter, but can he be a depth piece? Can he be a guy that a team believes can be a guy that is a part of the rotation that they can develop? And I think that Vidarian Lowe has shown enough to be able to be one of those guys. I don't think that he is a swing tackle. I don't think he can play right tackle. I think he can be a decent left tackle who is a liability in the run game. But in terms of pass blocking, as long as he can stay healthy, he's pretty average. He's really not that bad in that department, according to PFF. Patriots ultimately, I guess, don't get any trade options for Vidarian Lowe, or they just weren't really interested in trading him at the end of the day. Maybe they didn't get a value that they liked, but Vidarian Lowe is ultimately on this team. And you know what? I don't hate it. I really, really don't. This is a guy that's been here before. He knows the system. He was your starting left tackle last year. Again, if you need Vidarian Lowe to start for you long-term, yeah, scream from the top of the hills and scream bloody murder, because we're going to be in a bit of a pickle. But if that's a guy that you need to come in, for a drive or two or start a game or two for you, it could be a lot worse for Vidarian Lowe as long as he's starting over at left tackle. And again, I do think that over the next few days, this team is going to add to the roster still through potential trades, through the waiver wire priority. And I do think the offensive line is 100% going to be one of those places that they add to. Now, as for guards, I think this one was pretty self-explanatory. They got Michael Onwenu, Jared Wilson, and Caden Wallace. Only 3 guards on this roster. That is an area that Patriots fans, I'm telling you, keep a close look at the guys that are being released league-wide, because guard is 100% a place that the team is going to look at. I've already done some due diligence. There are a couple of guys that I am looking into, but I'm going to save that for a different video. Like I said for the guards, I thought this one was pretty self-explanatory. I had them keeping on Onwenu, Wilson, Caden Wallace, with the rest of the guys getting cut. I think here the bigger news is that Cole Strange was cut. Patriots couldn't get any trade value for him. I'm really not shocked there. But a guy that the Patriots used a first-round pick on in 2022 under Bill Belichick, the controversial pick, is officially done. The Strange era in New England is officially over, for better or for worse. And we cannot say that Cole Strange didn't have an opportunity to win the starting job. Like, he was the starting left guard throughout the beginning of training camp for quite a few practices. He lost it. They tried to cross-train him at center. It didn't look good. He didn't look good in the preseason. He lost his job all because of himself. And like I said, it's a new era here in New England. And I think what really sucks when you look at this Patriots cuts, more specifically on this offensive line, is the fact that how many guys that we have drafted in the interior of the offensive line alone since 2022 were cut. Layden Robinson, Cole Strange, City So. Those are just 3 guys off the top of my head. I mean, you had Antonio Mafi getting released last year. Those are all guys that you have drafted in the interior of the O-line. You use decent draft compensation on those guys, and none of those guys could even last 4 years. They couldn't even outlive their rookie contracts. I mean, interior offensive line is supposed to be one of those positions that's one of the easier positions to actually hit on and develop. And this team has not been able to do so. Very, very, very disappointing and very discouraging. As for the centers, you got Garrett Bradbury and Ben Brown. Again, I think that we all pretty much expected that was going to happen. Garrett Bradbury will be your starting center. Really, really hope that at some point Jared Wilson starts for the Pats there. That is where Jared Wilson was drafted to be. That's where he should be a starter. That's where the team should allow him to develop. Ben Brown, a decent backup there for you at center, but he's also going to be, a guy that was cross-trained at left guard. So at least with Ben Brown, the Patriots get a guy that is cross-trained. He can be a depth piece at multiple positions on the interior. So I thought that one was an absolute no-brainer. But moving on to the defensive side of the football, this is also where it got a little bit surprising. Because for edge rushers, you have Harold Landry, Keon White, Kayvon Chason, Anthony Jennings, and Elijah Ponder. There is a lot to break down there. First off, Anthony Jennings makes the final team. Now, I'm not jumping for joy just yet. I don't think we're out of the safe zone just yet. Okay, the Patriots have done this in the past where the guy makes the final roster, and then next thing you know, by week 1 or before week 2, the guy is getting traded. So I do still think Anthony Jennings is a guy that is on the trade block if the Patriots get good value for him. But at least for now, he is on the roster. And honestly, I do believe he's one of the Patriots' best 53 players. According to PFF, since 2022, Anthony Jennings is the best run defender in all of football. Not the best edge defender, but he is the best run defender in all of football. So with that being said, that has to be one of your best 53 players. You have to find a role for that guy on your roster, unless you get good draft compensation. And I'm talking a 4th round pick or better. Then, okay, whatever, trade him. He's down the depth chart. But what I really hope doesn't happen is that the Patriots don't trade Anthony Jennings, but then they don't play him. And the next thing you know, we have a guy that just got an extension last offseason who's a good football player who you just have riding the bench, taking up money, taking up a roster spot, and now you got nothing for him. If they are not going to play him at all, he's not going to be someone they use any given week, then at least get some type of draft compensation for him. But with how he performed against the Minnesota Vikings, 3 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, along with not playing against the Giants in that final preseason game, I hope that they realize that Anthony Jennings is a guy that can be a piece to this defensive line. Now, as for the rest of these guys, some rumors out there that Keon White could be traded. I never really bought into those too much. He, at least right now, is not traded. And then Elijah Ponder. Now, if we look at my roster predictions, I did have Elijah Ponder making this final roster. Elijah Ponder, I thought, had good moments in this offseason. You had your defensive line coach come out and say that Elijah Ponder is like the best guy that he has ever worked with. That is a lot of praise. Like I said, ability on special teams. I thought he showed moments as a pass rusher. Not expecting a lot from Elijah Ponder. Again, that's just more of a depth guy, but I think he's more going to be depth on defense, play more special teams. But what surprised me was Braden Swinson. He didn't make this roster. Anthony Jennings made this roster. Elijah Ponder made this roster. Truman Jones didn't make this roster. Truman Jones, number 54 himself, I thought looked really, really good. Respectfully, no hate to Elijah Ponder because I do like him. Truman Jones looked better than Elijah Ponder. And so when looking at the fact that your rookie 5th round pick that was considered to be one of the biggest steals of the draft, Braden Swinson was a projected top 50 pick. The Patriots got him in the 5th round. Really good size, really good length coming out of LSU, the teammate of Will Campbell. He didn't make the final roster, but Elijah Ponder did. That is something that I didn't see coming. Again, I saw Elijah Ponder making the final roster. I thought he would. But to have him make the roster and a rookie 5th round pick not have Truman Jones, who's on Mike Vrabel's winners of training camp, who had really good moments as a pass rusher with his bull rush ability in the preseason. Are you kidding me? That those guys aren't making the final roster? You hope that you can get both of them back on the 53-man roster, but to me, just a questionable decision by the Patriots. And the other thing about Elijah Ponder is that when I projected that he would make this final roster for the Pats, I said that if you keep Elijah Ponder here, that can help you if you want to move on from Javon Baker. And there's some people within the media that are like, oh, well, if you're keeping a guy for special teams, you don't need him to play on offense or defense. You don't need that guy to give you snaps. If you are one of the final guys on the 53 and you are only on this roster for special teams, I want you to contribute in one way or another. Like, not to go back on Javon Baker here, but if they can find a guy who is a good gunner on special teams, but can be depth for them on the offensive side or defensive side of the football without being a liability, cut Javon Baker and give me that guy. And I thought that's what Elijah Ponder could be. I thought Elijah Ponder was good on special teams and could give you depth as a pass rusher off the edge if need be. But they ultimately kept Javon Baker. They kept Elijah Ponder, but Braden Swinson and Truman are both off the roster. I think that was one of the biggest surprises for me when it came to roster cutdowns today. And look, sometimes when it comes to roster cutdowns, the initial 53 is not what you're heading into week one with. Guys, it's called the initial 53. Mike Vrabel said himself, this roster is going to remain fluid. What he means by that is that moves are going to be made. The 53-man roster you see right now, I can almost guarantee you guys that is not going to be the same roster that we roll out there against Vegas week one. There's going to be guys not on this list. There's going to be guys potentially on IR. There's going to be guys on the roster that are currently not here. And so maybe there are some guys that they released that they thought, we know that if we release you, we can bring you back. We can put you on the practice squad. We can put you back on the 53. But the guys that we have making the 53 right now, if we let those guys go, they would have been claimed. So again, it's a little bit of a game when it comes to roster cutdown. So that's certainly something to watch, but just with the edge position, not exactly the route that me personally, I would have went. But as for the defensive tackles, the Patriots are keeping Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Kyrie's Tonga, Joshua Farmer, and Jeremiah Farms. That was exactly the defensive tackle class that I had projected. I thought that the first three with Williams, Barmore, and Tonga, that was an absolute lock. No surprises there. But I did question Joshua Farmer and Jeremiah Farms because Joshua Farmer, as a fifth-round pick, I thought he's been very, very quiet. I thought he hasn't shown much. Now, I do think that Farmer is the type of guy that the Patriots do like. Like, he is a guy that he can stop the run, but he's a little bit undersized. I think the potential from Jeremiah Farms comes with Joshua Farmer, comes with the potential as a pass rusher. And that's what they want their defensive line to be. They want their defensive linemen, their main priority, to get to the quarterback, apply that pressure, not necessarily to stop the run. And we've talked about that a lot. And then you have Jeremiah Farms, the guy who really down the stretch of 2024 developed really, really well, not just at being a big body to stop the run, but also at getting to the quarterback. I thought he's also been a little bit more quiet. In the beginning of training camp, he was the next man up when Christian Barmore wasn't practicing. So it did signify that he likely was going to be on the roster, but I just thought from both of those guys, it was a pretty underwhelming preseason, a pretty underwhelming offseason. Didn't really hear or see much from them. And so I did have them both making the roster for the reasons that I just listed, but it also wouldn't surprise me if one of those guys does get cut at some point during the season. Now, moving on here to linebackers, I almost got this one, but it was a little bit off, just by one player. Now, Robert Spillane makes the final roster. Jelani Tavai makes the final roster. Now, Jelani Tavai is placed on IR. There was a report that came out today that Jelani Tavai was placed on season-ending injured reserve. That was not the case, okay? That was an incorrect report. The Patriots put Jelani Tavai on short-term IR. What this means is that Tavai is out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Guaranteed, even if he's healthy, even if he can practice, even if he can play in the game, he cannot come back. League rules. After week 4, meaning that week 5 is the earliest he can come back, the Patriots can activate him. Jelani Tavai, before he got injured in the final OTA practice, he was the Patriots' second linebacker behind Robert Spillane. Now, he missed a lot of time. It'll be interesting to see how he comes back. Questions on if he really fits this defensive scheme. Is it going to be Robert Spillane, Christian Ellis, Jelani Tavai? Or is it Robert Spillane, Jelani Tavai, and then Christian Ellis? Now, Jack Gibbons also makes this roster. There was some speculation throughout the media that this guy could be cut. I didn't see it. I didn't think he would be. This is a Mike Vrabel guy, has experience with him in Tennessee. So does Terrell Williams, the Patriots defensive coordinator. I thought he played well in that final preseason game against the Giants. He might not have a whole lot of speed. He might not be super sideline to sideline like they like from their linebackers, but he's a well-rounded linebacker. He doesn't excel at anything, but he's not a liability in anything either. Also gives you that potential on special teams too. So I thought Jack Gibbens was always making the roster. He was. Now, where I got it wrong was Marte Mapu. I thought that the Marte Mapu era was just going to be done in New England. This was the first offseason that they transitioned Marte Mapu from safety to linebacker. And when I said that Marte Mapu wasn't going to make the roster, it wasn't anything personal. I like Marte Mapu. I always have. Marte Mapu has shown a lot of potential, but this team just never put him in the position to succeed. They never developed him correctly. And I was like, we haven't seen enough from him to be able to say he makes the final roster. It's the inconsistencies from Marte Mapu that have given him lack of playing time. He's made the roster, the final roster, since being drafted in the 3rd round in 2023, but he's never had a large role because of his inconsistencies. Now, Marte Mapu is also always a better linebacker than he was a safety. This will be his first opportunity at really doing so. I thought he had some good moments against the Giants. That's when I think he shined the most. But again, that's against 3s and 4s. I need to know what you're going to look like as a linebacker against 1s. So I think Marte Mapu is one of the final guys on this 53-man roster. I think this is a pretty stacked linebacker core. It's not great. It could be better. But I think that Spillane, Tavai, Ellis, and Gibbons are all ahead of Marte Mapu. So how much time are we really going to see of Marte Mapu? I'm really just not expecting it to be a whole lot. But that'll really be dependent on how he develops behind the scenes throughout the season. Now, moving on here to cornerback. You got Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, Marcus Jones, Alex Austin, and DJ James. That is 5 total cornerbacks. Wouldn't be surprised if they do add another one. This is a little bit shallow for cornerbacks, but they also kept a little bit more depth at safety. So maybe they say if we need a guy to play in a pinch at cornerback because we're dealing with injuries, then maybe they put like a Jabril Peppers at outside cornerback, and that's how they kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But when it came to cornerbacks, I had Gonzo making it, Davis making it, Marcus Jones making it, Alex Austin making it, DJ James making it, and then I also had Brandon Crossley. Excuse me, that's who it was. I also had Brandon Crossley making the final roster. Now, I knew that was going to be a bit of a hot take. I wasn't confident about that one. But Brandon Crossley was the highest graded Patriot this preseason with an elite 90.1 overall grade. Throughout preseason games, from starters to depth, offense, defense, special teams, Brandon Crossley was the highest graded New England Patriot. I thought he showed a lot of promise. I thought he showed a lot of potential. And so I was a little bit surprised to see the Patriots let him go. I'm not confident that that's going to be a guy they get back on the practice squad. Not saying they won't, but just saying that is a guy that I could definitely see another team having interest in potentially picking up. So, of course, that means Miles Battle, Kobe Minor, Isaiah Bolden, Jordan Polk all got cut. I did have somebody comment saying, dude, how the heck do you have Kobe Minor getting cut? That makes no sense. And I was like, dude, what do you mean? Kobe Minor hasn't done anything. So, I mean, look, the Patriots are clearly showing that under Mike Vrabel, they are not shy to cut you if you're drafted, which, as bad as that maybe sounds, because like you used a draft pick on these guys, you want to see them develop, I also don't hate sending a message, okay? I don't care if you're a 7th round pick. I don't care if you're a 5th round pick. Just because you're drafted doesn't mean you're going to be on this roster. You got to prove that you're one of the best 53 players. Because I'll take a UDFA before I take you. Which, by the way, the Patriots kept 2 UDFAs this year. They kept Efton Chisholm and they kept Elijah Ponder, which I think also sends a pretty good message for the Patriots when trying to construct this roster and bring in talent down the road. But again, cornerback could potentially be another one of those areas where the Patriots do try to add. That would not surprise me because, again, usually on average, teams tend to keep about 6 cornerbacks. So, again, I do think with some of the injury problems there between Gonzo and Carlton Davis, maybe an area you want to have a little bit more depth at. Now, as for the safeties, which, by the way, my fault, I forgot to change the graphic here when we started to talk about the defense. But as for the safeties, you had more than I thought were going to make it. You got 5 safeties, man. You got 5 safeties on this roster, meaning that you currently have 10 defensive backs. Kyle Duggar, Jalen Hawkins, Jabril Peppers, Del Pettis, Brendan Schooler, and Craig Woodson. So, I mean, 6 if you're counting Brendan Schooler. I put Brendan Schooler on special teams for obvious reasons. Now, when it came to what I thought was going to happen with safeties, I thought that Jabril Peppers would, Jalen Hawkins would, Craig Woodson would, and Del Pettis would. Damn you, Ian Rappaport. Okay, that's all I got to say. Damn you, Ian Rappaport. Love you. Love you, Ian Rappaport. Best in the damn business. One of the best in the damn business. But I had Kyle Duggar on my 53-man roster until the day after the Giants game. You had Ian Rappaport come out and say that the Patriots are still shipping Kyle Duggar or shopping Kyle Duggar. They still want him traded. Okay? And so after I heard that, I was like, well, this is coming from one of the most reliable sources in the entire NFL. I got to take this seriously. The Patriots, despite what he just showed, they still believe that he should be off this team. And he had a really good preseason, developed well down the stretch. Mike Vrabel was giving him praise. And originally I thought, all right, well, that tells me he's going to be on the roster. Mike Vrabel said he's developed well as time's gone on. But then multiple reports coming out before the Giants game, after the Giants game, saying that, yeah, the Patriots are still trying to trade him. Now, with a loaded safety room, Kyle Duggar, just like Anthony Jennings, could still be a guy that gets traded. Right? Does Kyle Duggar's value go up when the season starts? When players start to get injured, and there is a team that feels like we are a safety away from really being a true contender. Does a team call up the Patriots late August, early November, right there at the end of the trade deadline and say, I'll give you, a 4th or a 5th round pick for Kyle Duggar? It's still a possibility. And maybe the Patriots did get trade interest for Kyle Duggar, but they were like a 6th or a 7th round pick. I'm good. I'm not going to move on from him for that. I'm going to keep him and we'll see what happens. That's always a possibility. There's always a possibility that they just like him and they do want to keep him around. But that, of course, is a storyline that we have to watch. If the Patriots go out there week 1 and Kyle Duggar is one of the most used safeties, then we're going to say, all right, well, he's probably a guy that is safe. And as long as he plays well, this is a guy that they're likely going to keep around. But again, a storyline to, of course, watch. And then we get into special teams, which, by the way, Del Pettis making the final roster, I didn't think was a surprise at all. Del Pettis is probably the best safety on this roster when it comes to consistently lining up against tight ends. So having that guy in your back pocket to where if Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, they're struggling against a tight end, especially week 1 against Brock Bowers, call up Del Pettis. And that's a guy that you feel pretty confident can go on any tight end in this league for the most part. And then as for special teams, I thought this one pretty self-explanatory. Andy Borgales, Brendan Schooler, Bryce Behringer, Julian Ashby at long snapper. Now, only thing I got wrong here was I thought that John Parker Romo was going to be traded. I thought that there was value in that. I still think the Patriots could have traded John Parker Romo, to be completely frank with you guys. If they get him back on the practice squad and he stays on the practice squad all year, I'm going to be shocked because John Parker Romo was the better kicker than Andy Borgales. And I actually had someone comment. They're like, dude, I think you're the only Patriots like content creator, Patriots reporter, whatever you want to call it, that has Andy Borgales making it over John Parker Romo. And I was like, that's actually crazy. If people within the Patriots media actually think that John Parker Romo is making it over Andy Borgales. Like, was Andy Borgales worse than John Parker Romo? Yeah. Like, statistically speaking, when you look at the entire offseason, John Parker Romo was the better guy. John Parker Romo was the more consistent guy, especially towards the end of camp and in the preseason. But you look at the usage, you look at the fact that that was the first kicker the first kicker taken in the 2025 draft. Patriots used a 6th round pick on him. The writing was kind of on the wall that they were going to roll with that guy. And I think that with kicker, you can't give up on those guys right away. Because you had Chad Ryland, who the Patriots drafted under Bill Belichick a couple of years ago. They moved on from him after 1 year. And he showed potential, he showed promise, then during the season was very inconsistent. He is now, I'm not saying elite, but he is now a very good kicker for the Arizona Cardinals. And it just showed that sometimes you have to kind of roll with that fair weather moments that those kickers are going to bring with you, those inconsistencies, because sometimes there is a rainbow at the end of the storm. And I think that that's kind of the mindset they're rolling here with Andy Borgales, is that you might not be where we want, you might be struggling, but we're going to stand behind you, allow you to develop, because being a kicker is really just mental. That's what it comes down to. This guy's confidence is shaking, or he feels like somebody's on the back of his heels and he's in his head too much, it's going to affect the way he kicks. So maybe now that he knows the Patriots are back behind him, that this coaching staff is back behind him, now that he knows that he is the starting kicker and there is nobody else on the back of his heels anymore, maybe it's a sigh of relief for Andy Borgales, and he starts to perform like a different kicker, and he actually is more consistent. But only time is going to tell on that one. So that is your New England Patriots 53-man roster. That is their official cutdowns. But let's get into a couple of your guys' comments before we ultimately leave off for today. By the way, guys, I will be releasing a video this week that is going to be some of the players that were cut league-wide that I would like to see the Patriots target, whether it's signing as a free agent or whether it's picking them up off of the waiver wire. So that is a video that you guys can look forward to. But we do have a super chat from my boy Ray. Shout out to Ray, big-time supporter of the channel, man. Ray, I see you supporting and commenting every show I'm on. Bleacher Report, Roundtable Sports, here, whether I'm doing a collab, man, Ray is in every single video that I'm a part of. So shout out to Ray, man. That support means the absolute world to me. But we got Nikhil coming in here. It says, Colby, I'm confused. Jeremy Springer said draft position does not determine kicker spot. He said, if you are a better player, regardless if you are a free agent or a draft pick, the better player wins. And Nikhil, I think that's a very safe analysis on the Patriots situation. But unfortunately for Jeremy Springer, he doesn't get the final say. When it comes down to the final say, it comes down to how this roster is going to be constructed. It comes down to Mike Vrabel. It comes down to Elliott Wolf. It comes down to Stretch. And if they say, no, this is what we're going to do, Jeremy Springer can't say, no, this is what we're going to do. He's going to have his input, but it's not going to be the final say. And I think that you look at what happened earlier on with Andy Borgales. He, for the longest time, was the better kicker. But then as time progressed and time went on, he started to be more inconsistent. And John Parker Romo looked like the better guy. And John Parker Romo has had a little bit more time to develop throughout the league. And I just think that they want to go with a younger guy. They want to go with their own draft pick. And I think in an ideal world, this team is going to try to get John Parker Romo back on the practice squad, which you didn't trade him. So I hope they can get him back on the practice squad. And if worst case scenario, things don't work out with Andy Borgales, well, now you got John Parker Romo back on the practice squad anyway. So, but I see DTN, he says, yo, can we get the Patreon members on here? And you know what? I feel like we haven't heard from the Patreon members in a little bit of time. So I think that that is a good idea. If you are a Patreon member and you want to come on real quick, let us know, what were your reactions? What were your thoughts about today's roster cuts? This is now going to be your opportunity. So real quick, let me put that on. Continue to drop your guys' questions in the chat too, and we will answer a couple more of your guys' thoughts, reactions on how things went today. All right. Pat's roster cut. So if you are a Patreon member, that is up right now for you to come on and join. But let's see. Any more good comments here? Nikhil says Swinson or Borgales, who deserved a roster spot more? Look, I would say Borgales. Like, I liked Braden Swinson. I thought he showed good moments as a pass rusher and with his length. Like, there was a couple times in the preseason he put tackles on skates, but I don't think he did enough to really stand out in a crowded edge group. You know, you got Andy Borgales, who, again, he's one of two kickers. He showed promise. You used a 6th-round pick on the guy. So I do think that Borgales was the better guy over Swinson. And you got to think of the value too. Like, Borgales was going up against one guy. Braden Swinson was going up against a whole lot of other guys. And even if he made the final roster, he was going to be stashed behind a bunch of guys. I mean, Keon White, Harold Landry, Anthony Jennings, the list goes on and on. But we do got our first Patreon member on. So let's see what DTN has to say about the Patriots roster cuts today. What was surprising from him? DTN, what's going on, hon? What's going on, man?
Nothing much, Colby. How about you?
I'm good, man. Roster cut downs today was it was a busy day, but what were your thoughts? What was your perspective from an outside Patriots fan when watching the roster cut downs go today? You know, I think it was a bit of a roller coaster. You got Javon Baker reported that he's released, unfollowing the Patriots, and then he makes it, which I don't think a lot of people were expecting except the Javon Baker truthers. And then you have Truman not making the final roster, Swinton not making the final roster, but Elijah Ponder, the UDFA, does. What were some of your biggest surprises and takeaways?
I was had mixed feelings about Javon Baker, and I did halfway of the Patriots Giants live stream. I was about to head to work. I uploaded a short video on my way to work, voicing my own opinions about Javon Baker, and I completely agreed with you during that live play-by-play live stream because I was really disgusted with what I saw from Javon Baker, especially year after year. I was game after game after game. He has shown me nothing for why he would be on the 53-man roster. So I was really disgusted about the whole with Javon Baker making the 53-man roster. Granted that
now DTN, you were a Javon Baker truther earlier this offseason, right? Like you originally wanted him to make the final roster, right?
that was more of last year, but this year I thought I didn't want Javon Baker, nor did I want Jalen Polk. So it's hard to say considering that it didn't help that we had two wide receiver coaches who absolutely did nothing to help the cause. Like we had Tyler Hughes, and then obviously we had Tyquan Underwood as our wide receiver coaches, and thank God they're gone and we have Todd Downing. So I feel like now everything shifted, but then again, I was not a huge fan of Javon Baker, but regardless. And when I made my 53-man roster back in June 30th in a live stream that I did, I had Demario Douglas, Stephon Diggs, Kendrick Bourne on the list, Mac Hollins, and Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte, and Efton Chisholm. And I thought I would have Javon Baker and Jalen Polk in the practice squad. And granted, this was before the whole injury to Jalen Polk, so I thought he would make the practice squad, excuse me. So I'm curious to see if I thought he would make the practice squad, and I'm going to eat crow for saying that, he make the 53-man roster. But I could be told, we were all wrong about Javon. Well, majority of us were wrong about Javon Baker, and I was really disgusted about that. But hey.
Yeah, I don't really know who had him making the roster, right? Because I don't like to just think with my perspective. Now, all thoughts that I share on my channel, videos, live streams, all that, it's always my own opinions, but I always like to see, well, all right, what are people in the media saying? Am I alone on this take, just out of curiosity? And from the 53-man rosters, the final ones that I was seeing, I wasn't really seeing a lot of people who had Javon Baker making the final roster. And by the way, it's not a hate thing at all. Again, I was a huge Javon Baker fan coming out of the draft. I had so much hope from him. And I think that Baker deserved to make the roster as a gunner. But my thing is that if you're going to make the roster, any roster league-wide, and do it only as a gunner on special teams, then you either need to, be one of the best in the league like Matthew Slater, who would only play special teams, or you need to be able to play in a pinch, offensively or defensively. I'm not saying you have to start there, but you have to be able to be depth. And I just don't think that Javon Baker is even depth on the offensive side of the football. Guys, he's wide receiver 8. What that tells me is that even if injuries present themselves, there is 7 wide receivers that are still going to be ahead of him. He was a liability as a blocker. He is under a 24% catch percentage throughout his Patriots career so far against backups. He's never even played against starting caliber cornerbacks. Like, that's my thing. If even the Javon Baker fans out there can understand that he's on this roster solely to play special teams, then okay. But I think that we need to move on from the Javon Baker wide receiver experiment, because even next offseason, this team is going to look to bring in much better players, veterans, try to acquire a wide receiver 1. They're not going to keep giving Baker those opportunities. I mean, it's been 2 off seasons now.
Yeah, and I was like, if Marcellus Dial never went down on a season-ending injury, and prayers up to him, I would have rather had him being a special teamer than Javon Baker. And I would rather have Lynn, because at the time before the injuries, because my list, I was really incorrect with the running backs. I was definitely incorrect with the offensive linemen, but with the running backs, I thought that if Land Larson stayed healthy and not went on that boot, I would have rather have him made the roster over Javon Baker. I would definitely had Marcellus Dial over Javon Baker. It was just that the injuries are so unpredictable. Like, it's gonna have to be next man up mentality. And if Javon Baker can mature and grow up after his whole, saga last season and then during the offseason, I think he could be a better player. And we all want our players to do good. But it's just hard when you have young talent like going on to social media nowadays, wanting to voice your opinions about all of that. And I want to talk briefly about the safety room. And I thought that for the safety room that I did predict that Kyle Duggar would have made the 53-man roster, but that was just because we had no other choice. And I thought Jalen Hawkins would be the guy cut. I made the 53-man, I would say the practice squad, excuse me, but I was wrong. And Marcus Epps was released just as we predicted, because he voiced his opinion saying that he is not a scheme fit, and that is respectable. I would rather be released because you don't fit the scheme rather than saying you want to be released because of money and whatnot. And that's what I like from players. I don't like players who would be caught just because of like the whole money thing.
Yeah, and one thing that I do want to address here, and this isn't like shots at anyone. I just see a lot of people saying this is well, it took Edelman 4 years to become a starting wide receiver. So for Baker, why can't that same thing happen for him? Now, Julian Edelman played several different roles on special teams. You know, he was a returner, he was a gunner a little bit. There's a lot of different things that he did that allowed him to stick on the roster for a lot of time. I also think that the NFL is just not as patient as it is. You know, it's not as patient as maybe it once was. I don't think Javon Baker is going to stick here throughout 4 years unless he proves that he is one of the best gunners on special teams. Javon Baker has also shown you that he's not really a threat in the return game. The other thing we have to remember is that Julian Edelman, coming out of college, was transitioning from a quarterback to wide receiver when he came to the NFL. So with that being said, he had to understand what it was like to play a completely different position. Javon Baker has always been a wide receiver. He's always played wide receiver. And Julian Edelman also didn't struggle with simply catching the balls against 3s and 4s the way that Javon Baker also is. We also have to remember that Julian Edelman fit the system. Julian Edelman was your classic small, white, shifty slot receiver that thrives under Josh McDaniels. The same reason that we've talked about Efton Chisholm succeeding here, and that's why he made the final roster. Javon Baker, the type of receiver he is, he's like more of that, you know, outside security blanket, X receiver, works through contested situations. That's not like the guy. That's not the premier guy that's focused on in this offense under Josh McDaniels. They tried it under N'Keal Harry, and that didn't work out. So there's a lot of different factors that don't bode well for Javon Baker that are very, very different from what it was like for Julian Edelman back in the day.
Yeah. I would say the same thing for Efton Chisholm. Like, somebody asked me in my live stream that I did a couple hours ago, asking me where would I rank Chisholm out of the 53 rounds, or if Efton Chisholm would be the main wide receiver for the 53-man roster. And I would say it would take him game after game, or maybe season after season, for him to be like in the top dogs. He could be like a wide receiver 3, but it's just that there's so much talent on the wide receiver room. You have to like work your way up to be like a top dog. Like, me and my couple of colleagues, we were like ranking like, out of the 4 wide receivers over Chisholm, like, who would I pick? And I would say Diggs, Pop, Booty, and Williams in a list, just because they have more talent and more veteran presence than Efton Chisholm. Granted that Efton Chisholm was an undrafted free agent, and I'm glad that we grabbed him through the 53-man roster rather than letting some random team like the Denver Broncos claiming him off of waivers, and I'm really thankful for that. And we also, I did remember, we did discuss about like players that we could also acquire through waivers tomorrow, because I know that waivers do start tomorrow at 12 p.m.
Sir.
So there's a lot of players that we can scourge, and particularly not just running back, maybe like emergency quarterback. Maybe we can look into like offensive line. And I just don't understand why there's speculations that the Patriots want Tommy DeVito. So because I don't want Tommy DeVito because we know that I like Joshua Dobbs to be like the veteran presence for Drake May, but one of my colleagues wanted Joe Flacco to be like the backup to Drake May. I wanted maybe Tyler Huntley, just because at least he's had some starting experience. Yeah, I really wanted Snoop, just because at least he has some starting experience. But Yeah, there's so much to talk about, especially when there's so many cuts. And when at the end of the stream, I was like scrolling through CBS Sports, and I saw a whole list of players that we can get, especially through waivers. Like we could get like Joshua Gray, we could get like Willie Lampkin, because I was shocked that these two were cut by their respective teams.
Was Willie Lampkin cut?
Willie Lampkin
Wow.
got cut. Same with Bryson Nesbitt, the tight end out of Minnesota.
That's actually really surprising. So, like, if Willie Lampkin was cut, because unfortunately I have been on streams all day, so I haven't been able to look at all of the team's roster cut downs and see who all was cut. But if Willie Lampkin was cut, that's actually a guy that performed better this offseason. Now, obviously not tackle, but he did perform better than Will Campbell did. And Will Campbell was one of the highest graded overall offensive linemen, rookie offensive linemen from the preseason. Willie Lampkin actually ranked higher than him. So if the Patriots want to bring in Willie Lampkin, man, I'm all here for it, 100%.
Yeah, I was really huge on Willie Lampkin. And the reason why I specifically mentioned Lampkin and Nesbitt, because both of them played with Drake May during their time in North Carolina. So basically it could be more of like a reunion, and it would just be great to see a rapport with these three again, especially you got the whole entire UNC crew back together again.
Yeah, man. I mean, that would be absolutely iconic. But DTN, let the people know where they can find it, because I do know you got your own Patriots channel.
Yes, and I want to say huge shout out to a couple of the viewers that are in the YouTube chat that were also on my channel. Basically, huge shout out to Paperwaves, huge shout out to Aston, huge shout out to Gerard. If I can't get to anybody, but huge shout out to you guys. My YouTube channel is NE Patriots Talk. We do a lot of like these fun, creative live streams. Funny enough, Paperwaves, who is in the chat right now, he is going to be leading me, three other guys on a huge Will Campbell film breakdown project that you should be down for September 3rd. And once we hit 100 subscribers, currently we're at 82 subscribers for NE Patriots Talk. Once we hit 100 subscribers, we're going to have a special live stream. We're going to have a Q&A segment. We're going to have call-ins similar to what the AFC East Roundtable is doing. And we got some giveaways. One of my friends is a card collector himself, and he has a Will Campbell card that is actually signed. Wow. So you really, I'll post it in the link once I get off the stream. But man, you got to go on the NE Patriots Talk, because this is like a segue from your channel, Kobe. And I would say, like, I want to say I'm a fanboy of you, because even though we finally met in person a few weeks ago, so that was really awesome. It was really awesome getting an experience. I have pictures of it. And yes, guys, it's NE Patriots Talk. I will post the link in the YouTube chat. So I will post it again if you guys miss it. But hey,
let's go, man. DTN, brother. Let's go. That's what we love to hear, man. Consistency, man. DTN, make sure you drop the link in the comment section below so people can definitely find you. And we will have the Patreon members on a lot more this season, guys, especially with the games back after every single game day. We don't just do live watch parties, but we also do post-game recaps on the channel when we get Rob back here, too, who you guys have seen on the channel over the last couple of years. He'll be back, too. And, of course, at the end, Patreon members are always welcome to come on. But we got one more Patreon member before we log off for the day. Let's hear what Red Sox has to say.
Yo.
What's up, man?
Not much.
What'd you think about roster cuts today?
I saw them. I mean, the only surprise that really I saw was, like, Cole Strange, but I mean, I guess it's not really much of a surprise. It hasn't really done much, but I mean, they just are what they are at this point. I mean, I feel like it's
definitely disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It just seems like it was a wasted first round pick now, more now than ever, obviously, but it is what it is. I mean, everything else looked pretty solid. I didn't see anything that, like, I don't know. I feel like this team was like there shouldn't have been a lot of surprises, and there wasn't.
Was there anything else outside of Cole Strange that surprised you? Like, did you have a surprise that, Javon Baker made it or that Braden Swinson was released?
I didn't even see Braden Swinson get released. He'll probably be on my.
So he didn't make it. Elijah Ponder, the UDFA, made it over him.
Yeah. What's the size difference? I remember reading about Braden Swinson. He's like, what, 6'5", 6'6", and like 100 and something pounds. Like, he's very, very light.
Yeah, he's light. Good length, but definitely lighter. He's more of like an outside linebacker than he is a true edge setter. But I think that, that gives them the potential where they want to drop him back into coverage, which we've seen this defense do before, rush from several different formations defensively, whether it's off the edge or whether it's shooting the gaps. But, obviously a guy that they felt wasn't ready yet.
I wouldn't say this defense. This is the whole new coaching staff, whole new team. So that's just kind of, I'm excited to see what they can do. That's where that kind of stems off from. We'll see what this team does. They seem like they looked pretty decent in preseason and throughout. So they seem like they also just seem like they're more of a football team, like a completed football team, and not just like, yeah, we're just going to go out here and run some plays, and if we win, we win,
There's like an actual system put in place, like a real coaching
which is what it was
staff.
last year. Yeah, that's kind of what it was last year. Like, yeah, we're just gonna go out here and run some plays, guys, and it's kind of all it felt like. So
you feel like there's direction now, right? Like, do you feel like players here understand that you have to fight for something, that you're not guaranteed anything, that this coaching staff isn't going to be a pushover, and that you do have to show up to work every single day? Do you get those kind of feelings from what you've seen from this coaching staff?
Well, we've seen it with what they've did and done, and Cole Strange was a big one at the beginning of the year. I was like, Cole Strange is probably going to be a lock to make the roster at left guard.
Yeah,
that didn't happen. Kyle Duggar being a lock at the strong safety position. He's on the roster, but he was on second team for the entire, preseason. He was out there playing in the third game for most of it. So it seems like the team has more morale. It seems like there's just better leadership, being led correctly. At the end of the day, like, Mike Vrabel's a playoff coach. He was in an AFC championship game in 2019 with the Chiefs. So you really can't pretend that he knows what he's doing. I'm not calling him a rookie head coach, because he's not. He was a head coach for 4 or 5 years beforehand. Yeah. So, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what to do. Josh McDaniels is a great offensive coordinator, probably one of the best in the game. And then you have the defensive. The only hole in the coaching staff, if you want to call it a hole, is like the defensive coordinator, because has the guy ever been a defensive coordinator, or was he just the defensive line coach with the Lions? And last year, the defensive line for the Lions the Lions had a great team
despite the injuries too.
And they were plagued by injuries. So I wouldn't even really call that a hole. The defense has looked decent. The only time they let up 40 points was against the Giants, when they didn't play anybody. And the Giants played they played their some of their first string, some of their second string, and then third and fourth against guys that the next day were cut. So,
yeah,
they looked pretty good in the first game, where they played some of their starters and they played, their second string guys. So I'm not too worried, but it actually looks like a team that can compete in games that they're going to be playing in, and not just, down a little bit. We're just not going to try and come back and win. We're going to, go 3 and out, and we're going to call stupid plays, and then we're not going to do this on defense. And
yeah, no, I get that. I do want to get your thought on this too, Red Sox. Just before we have, you log off here, is just, what are your thoughts on Kendrick Bourne? Because I've seen the fan base really divided. Some fans are happy he's still here. Some are like, how the heck is this guy still on the roster?
He's definitely an interesting case, because 2021, which seems like a long time ago now, a completely different team, right? That was 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point. So now it's like Kendrick Bourne back then is not the Kendrick Bourne now. This is the Kendrick Bourne that, had an ACL tear in 23. got benched in 2022, didn't do much in 2024. So, but the thing is the teammates love him because he's never a Debbie Downer. Not to like say that, but he's not. He has high morale. He's always brings energy, and that's probably what put him on the team. He was injured all preseason, right? He didn't play a game, didn't practice, didn't do anything. So, I mean, maybe they're using him as trade bait and they're going to trade him away to a team that's desperate. I heard that, teams were calling for Jalen Polk before he, had the season-ending shoulder surgery. They were fielding calls for everybody this time. I heard they fielded calls for Kyle Duggar. I heard they fielded calls for Freeney Jennings. I heard they were fielding calls for everybody. So
yeah, they were.
Ultimately, they fell with this roster that maybe obviously the trade packages weren't good enough. The return wasn't good enough to move on from them. Maybe they're thinking that maybe teams are like, oh, well, we don't know if he's going to be good enough to play. So maybe they're going to try and slide him in for a couple games. Maybe before the deadline, they might move him. I don't know. Who knows what's his injury status? And if he plays, what's he going to do on the field? Because I don't want to say the team is loaded on wide receiver talent. I don't think they're really loaded on anything. But they definitely have a crowded receiver room in the sense that you have Stephon Diggs, who is a pure number one. He's going to be your number one target. He's going to be racking in a lot of yards. Right behind him is Pop, and then it's Kayshon Boutte, and then it's Williams. So, I mean, where would you slot in Kendrick Bourne in that fourth? And then, also have the guys that are also fighting for playing time behind him, like Afton Chisholm. And after that, I mean, Mac Hollins, is he made the roster, right?
Yeah.
I believe. Yeah. A lot of people think that he's going to be playing a lot because he is a phenomenal run blocker. And this team is going to want to run. So, I mean, the problem is now like, where are you going to slot him in? I
think those are really good points.
Are you going to run spread offense and run 4 receivers and no tight end and you're one running like that? In situational packages, sure, but like, is Kendrick Bourne really just how much are we paying him to be a situational receiver unless he's going to be like over somebody else? But I really don't see maybe he slots in over Kayshon Boutte, but that's about it. So you're talking about he's the 4th guy on the field because Pop Douglas is going to be your slot guy. And he's probably going to interchange with Afton Chisholm. And then your number 2 is going to be Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte. And Mac Hollins is going to be also in that rotation. So I don't know if there's really a space for him.
It's definitely a fair assessment. But Red Sox, any last thoughts before we log off?
I hope this team wins. That's all. That's it.
I hope this team wins, man. Team
can win some games this year. I'm tired of watching them just play like shit and lose.
That's a beautiful way to put it, man. And that's why I like having you guys on, man. I like having you guys on because it is the voice from the fans. And like, look, I'm a fan too. Of course, obviously I'm here. But this channel is meant to be realistic and take myself out of being the fan and kind of bring you guys what is realistically happening with the team from an outside view. Now, a couple more things that I want to hit on before we do log off on the day is I want to give my own thoughts on the Kendrick Bourne take, okay? How is Kendrick Bourne on this team? Why is Kendrick Bourne on this team? And then also people saying that Matt Collins, how is this guy on the team? I mean, people have been calling for Matt Collins to be cut and traded and anything but be on this team for weeks now. As for Kendrick Bourne, I will say, and I said this earlier, I'm surprised they kept 8 wide receivers. I don't want to say I'm surprised they kept Kendrick Bourne, but I'm a little bit surprised they kept Kendrick Bourne, but I'm glad that they did. And I don't believe that Kendrick Bourne is necessarily going to be on this roster the entire season. There is a real world in which they do try to trade him, and that's why they're keeping him right now, to keep the rights to him, to try to get some type of draft compensation for him, right? Because I do believe that a team would be willing to trade for KB. Now, unfortunately, that value has definitely gone down with injuries and age and another year into his contract. But the Patriots, it feels like every single year since KB has been here, have gotten trade offers and trade offers and trade offers for Kendrick Bourne. This is a guy that people do want on their teams. As for why could the Patriots want him, Kendrick Bourne is a guy that's never complained. Kendrick Bourne has never gotten the reasonable amount of playing time that he should have here in New England. And I think that an issue that proposed itself last year with guys not getting on the field at the wide receiver position, but then bitching about it behind the scenes and posting about it on social media, that's something you never have to worry about with Kendrick Bourne. So at least with KB, even if you don't play him much or you don't target him much, he's going to be a guy that is good for the locker room, that is good for the atmosphere, is going to keep everybody together. We saw from Kendrick Bourne's YouTube video back from the throwing session that Drake May held earlier this offseason, that Kendrick Bourne was teaching these young guys. He was going one-on-one with Kyle Williams. He was teaching Kyle Williams. He was being that veteran mentor. And maybe that's the role that Kendrick Bourne is also here for. Now, Kendrick Bourne, I'm not saying has done a whole lot. Okay, I know that Kendrick Bourne had one of his best statistical seasons under Josh McDaniels in 2021. KB is vocally happy that Josh McDaniels is back here, saying that that's his guy. In fact, I think it's interesting because back when back a couple of weeks ago, before the team started training camp, it's when they left after minicamp. They came back and they were like, who did you miss the most? And Kendrick Bourne said Josh McDaniels. He said, quote, Josh McDaniels, that's my guy. And so I do believe that Kendrick Bourne hasn't been put in a position to succeed over the last couple years. And I do wonder if this year we see a little bit more from him. Let's also remember that last year, Kendrick Bourne was coming off of injured reserve. He was coming off of a torn ACL. It takes a year to come back from that torn ACL to start looking like yourself again. He had never worked with Drake May before. He had never worked in Alex Van Pelt's system before. And he came back when the season had already started in week 5 and was playing catch-up in a system he didn't work in before, with a quarterback he never worked with before, and still rehabbing from that injury. So I don't think that we can say necessarily that last year is what we should expect from Kendrick Bourne. But there are a lot of wide receivers that are ahead on this depth chart before KB. Stephon Diggs, Pop Douglas, Mac Hollins, Kayshon Boutte. I think that at best, KB is probably like wide receiver 5 on this team. But he's still a good guy to keep around because he won't complain and he is good depth and he has worked in the system before and understands the system and does understand these expectations. So I think that's why they kept Kendrick Bourne along. There is still a world in which they trade him. I'm still saying watch the San Francisco 49ers. That is a team that is dealing with injuries still at wide receiver, a team that has been interested in Kendrick Bourne in the past as Kendrick Bourne started his career in San Francisco. So again, watch a few trades. I know that the initial 53 is here, but watch a couple of trades still because Mike Vrabel, like I said earlier, said himself that this roster is going to be fluid. The other thing that I want to touch on before we log out is going to be Mac Hollins. One storyline I don't understand is why Patriots fans are getting on Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins dealt with an injury. It's unfortunate, but he dealt with an injury from Buffalo last year. The Patriots knew when they signed him to a multi-year deal, by the way. Mac Hollins had one of his best statistical seasons under Josh McDaniels back in his days with the Raiders. As we heard Red Sox say, he's also a very, very good run blocker. Did you guys see? Now, I'm not saying that he's a good run blocker because of this, but he's aggressive. And did you see him, Mac Hollins, put Mike Vrabel on his ass when they were practicing for the upcoming Raiders game? I mean, that's just the type of vibes, and that's the type of atmosphere, and that's just the type of plays that Mac Hollins is going to give you. I also think that we saw that early connection between Drake May and Mac Hollins early in the preseason. Mac Hollins has something that a lot of wide receivers on this roster don't have. He has the ability to make up for the inconsistent throws by Drake May. He has a large catch radius. He has good size. He's that big target. Mac Hollins is exactly what we heard Mike Vrabel say earlier this offseason they wanted. They said we need to surround Drake May with protection, but we also need to give him guys with a large catch radius that can help minimize the mistakes of Drake May. And that's exactly what Mac Hollins is. We saw it in the preseason. We saw it since Mac Hollins came back. And this is Mac Hollins still working back from the injury, understanding the system, the playbook, building the connection with Drake May. I think, and I don't think this is a hot take, I think that Mac Hollins is going to have a better season in New England this year than he did for the Bills last year. And now he only put up like 300 or 400 yards for the Bills last year, but I think that Mac Hollins is going to put up 500 some yards for New England this year. I really, really do, as long as he stays healthy. So this is where I kick it off to you guys. All right. What are your thoughts on the 53-man roster cutdowns? What were your surprises? What were your thoughts on my takes? Let me know in the comment section below. 116 people watching right now. We had, I think, I peaked at like 130 some today. So Really appreciate you guys for tuning on into the show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every single time I post a video, I go live, I post a short, so that you can get into the New England Patriots discussions, not just with me, but with your fellow Patriots fans all season long. On your way out, make sure you leave a big like on the video, guys. It does a lot for me. It helps support the channel tremendously. It helps us hit the YouTube algorithm when you guys hit that thumbs up button. So please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button on your way out. But until next time, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys are tuned in all season long, because we are right around the bend from the season starting, which means that we have winners and losers videos coming back. We got watch parties for every single game. These games matter now. We got post-game recaps with Rob right around the bend. Football is here, and this is your one-stop shop for everything involving the New England Patriots. But as always, I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Make sure you follow me on my other social medias as you see scrolling down below. But as always, go Pats.